A very good afternoon to all of you. Today is my honor that I invited by Boys Brigade Malaysia. I would like to thank Brother Josh, where he has invited me to share about disaster response. My name is CK Cheong. I'm the Executive Director from CREST Malaysia, one of the registered humanitarian NGOs in Malaysia since 1998. So if you do a quick calculations, we are about 22 years in Malaysia. And throughout the years, CREST has been in about 20 countries. We are there to serve the people, the poor people and the needy people who are suffering because of natural disasters. Now, I think today's natural disaster is not alien's word to all of you. The pandemic that we are facing today actually is part of the natural disaster. So since 1998, CREST has there are 4 Christians from different denominations, and we prayed to God and we came together to form these organizations as a Christian NGO in Malaysia. The founding members of CREST, we have a heart to serve. So we came up with a vision bringing God's love to the poor and needy in crisis. And that will be our vision statement. And we carry these visions until today. So there are so many things that we have learned throughout for the past 20 years. And besides stepping into the disaster countries or disaster area to help the victims, we also learn a lot of things from them. We also see how God gives us the visions and also the passions to serve the people. CREST is a humanitarian NGO. And as a humanitarian NGO, we apply the International Code of Conduct. So whereby, as an international humanitarian NGO, whatever operations or whatever things that we give in our operations, we will not take into any considerations of regardless of their age, genders, religions, race, and political views. So today's topic and today's objective, there are 3, okay? And these 3 topics are given by Brother Josh. The first one is talk about risk assessment. Second is we are going to talk about how we're going to mobilize a team. And third, we are going to talk about the culture. So let's quickly jump into the first risk assessments. Now, brothers and sisters in Christ, we might not know the whole disaster management cycles. A lot of us, we think disaster management cycles only stuck in response. Actually, there are 4 phases in disaster management. The first phase, previously, we always take the response as the first phase, which is recently is not correct. The first phase is we call it as preparations. Okay, prepare for disaster, not respond. We have already changed these disaster management cycles, the first phase for response into preparations. So what we are going to do it today is actually, we talk about it, is preparations. How we prepare ourselves, either to face disaster or to respond to a disaster. Okay, for all of us, we are quite blessed because we are staying in Malaysia. Malaysia is not a country that exposed into a natural disaster compared to other countries like Japan, Indonesia, and Philippines. We are so blessed. But these blessings, yes, we all know it's come from God. So when disaster happen in other country, either we choose to stay at home or choose to do nothing inside an air conditioning room, or we choose to do something. Now today's we are not able to cover the whole series of the training that we have. We are not able to train you as a super volunteers or disaster management manager. So, but today we are able to give you some introductions, some ideas how we're going to start. So we talk about preparedness. Now, the first topic is risk assessment. The risk assessment need to be conducted before the disaster happens, or before you step on the plane, respond to any disaster in the world. Risk assessment starts from yourself. You need to assess yourself into 3 categories. So first point, check yourself physically. Second, check yourself mentally strong. The third to check yourself is spiritually strong. The second risk assessment is about the team. Okay, for example, we are heading to a flood in Kelantan. Who are we going to work with? Okay, who is my teammate? And most important, who is my team leader? Right. So after understand this, we need to also draft or to plan and or to determine what is our team objective. If we know about the team objective, we have to know the leaders. Okay. Now, to maintain to maintain a team is the hardest things when we do disaster response. If you are not a trained volunteers and you report yourself to the front line, this is very, very tough to manage it, because we can't give you a 4 or 5 days training before we send you for deployment. The first team is in a very critical situation and we need to deploy you immediately. Therefore, train beforehand. Okay. So the third risk assessment is about the affected areas. And before we enter there, we need to know who is our local partner, who can receive our team. Even when we deploy a team, there's no one-person team. We always need a group of volunteers. The fourth assessment will be the external risk. Okay, we talk about after the disaster, there is a primary risk, there is a secondary risk, and etc. etc. Now, earthquake. What is the primary risk after the earthquake? If you're going into an earthquake zone, there will be aftershock. Then secondary risk. Secondary risk, for example, can be like outbreak. Some of the for example, malaria, all this outbreak. Because after the earthquake, we are hardly able to access it into a clean water. So that will be a secondary risk. We also need to think about what will be our cultural risk. Okay, as a Malaysians, we are very lucky because we are living in a multicultural societies. Okay, we are not so much easily to get culture shock if we travel within Southeast Asia. Now, the other point we will talk about the social risk. Okay, Kelantan's flood, and also my first time respond to Kelantan, and during the time we found out there are 2 ketua kampung, and this is one of their ways, for many years. So I call it socially shock. So the last thing is why we want to do all this risk assessment is because we want to do risk analysis. After we are knowing this and that, this vulnerabilities and that vulnerability, we want to analyze it. Every risk some of the risks can be prevented. Some of the risks can be mitigated. What is the meaning of mitigations or mitigated is because reduce it. Okay, the last one, some of the we cannot prevent, we cannot mitigate, but we can do some preparations. Now, look at these pictures. These pictures is this year recently flood in Pahang. Okay, and you can see from the picture, okay, we are using water jet. Okay, and this water jet is a very, very high power water jet. Okay, even I train using this water jet, but I did mistake that I shoot the water into my leg, and my leg get injured. My skin peel off, and I can see something which is I injured my leg. So if I use this water jet to spray, to shoot, in front of people or children within 1 meters, that particular person can get blind or can be hospitalized. So it's very, very important when we respond to disaster, we get trained to use our equipments or tools. Okay, so this is one of the preventions. Now, the second thing, if you see this picture, you can see we put on masks, put on the simple things of PPEs, personal protection equipments. So this is something that we can mitigate. Okay, because after the flood, there are so many bacteria with the mud, with the waters. Okay, we don't want these bacteria or even viruses. Okay, as I said, this for flood response, we responded this year. Because we also want to avoid or protect ourselves from COVID-19. Okay, yes, wearing this might not able to totally prevent it, but we can reduce the risk of we getting sick. So we call it mitigations. So that's why we wear all this PPE. And the other one you can see there's a first aid kit, okay, on the right bottom corner. And this first aid, we put it into our car. So wherever we travel, we carry this first aid kit. This is something that we can prepare. The second point I would like to touch is mobilizations. Before we deploy any team into a disaster area, I encourage all of us get trained. Okay, in CREST we prepare 2 modules. The first module we call it disaster preparedness. The code name is C110. C is called the core module. Okay, so C110 we let you know the basic needs for yourself. How are you going to plan for a trip? Okay, what are the tools that you should bring along? If you respond to a local disaster, it's not that much of a problem. But if you respond to an international disaster crossing the border, now that will be a challenge. So the second module is called C120. We talk about disaster response. In disaster response, we talk about how we build up a team, how we form a team, what is the structure we should use. And this structure is not only used in CREST or even in Malaysia. This structure is used widely. And even when I went to Japan in 2011 during the great tsunami and earthquake, the Japanese are using the same structure when they respond to disaster. Same goes to Indonesia and Philippines. So you are going to learn all this structure. Okay, we're going to train about, we're going to share about how to do a need assessment. Now this will be the key of this will be the key to success when you do disaster response assessment. Okay, and third one is logistic and distributions. All disaster response we will involve logistic. How to get there, how to send food from one location to another location. So this is a very important module when you want to be trained as a disaster responder. Okay, and C110 is 1 day training and C120 is 2 days training. Now back to these mobilizations. In the beginning, I talked about there are 4 phases. You can make more phases, okay, if when you detail it down, but generally there are 4 phases. Preparedness, some of them we talk about risk reduction, mitigation, or training. The other one is respond, emergency respond, and then after respond, you will come into recovery and development. It will depends which phase you are going to respond. The first phase is started with emergency response, and whereby this phase we need people who are specialized in certain field, for example, search and rescue, medications. Okay, and this phase you need to be deployed immediately. You have to reach there as soon as possible. But this phase is very, very short. Sometimes generally is 72 hours. The maximum is about 5 days, not more than that. Okay. After the emergency phase, we talk about response phase, whereby this phase you will see a lot of people start to do some distributions, food distributions, clothing distributions, water distributions, and etc. etc. Okay, some of them they are restoring some water source. So also come into this phase. This phase can be 6 months, right? Recovery phase can be from 1 year to 3 years, and development phase can be more than 5 years. So we have to know which phase we are going in, and then we have to know which sector we are heading to. We are providing. Okay, what we are providing. So under UN, there are 11 different sectors. Okay, there is a shelter sector. Shelter, we talk about building, clothing, all this, the tower, all this belongs to the shelter cluster, we call it. In UN, we call it cluster. There is the child education. We call it, it's under UNHCR. Child protection is under one sector. Food nutrition, another sector. Logistics, sector. WHO, health, medications, under another sector. So there are 11 sectors. Okay, it depends on what is your expertise. Before deployment, there are 5 things we need to consider. For CREST, we always practice this. The first thing is security on the ground. Okay, we will not send you into a Taliban areas because we'll make you into a very dangerous situations. Okay, so we will think about when we deploy this team into that particular area, is that safe? Okay, so if the security for myself and for yourself will be our first priority. Second is accessibility. Okay, if you look at this picture, the picture in the PowerPoint, you can see my team is heading into a C-130, that means the military cargo planes. And these are more organized by the UN and help from our local partner. Why we need to board the military plane? Because when that time, Typhoon Haiyan Category 5, they destroyed the whole airport. There's no commercial plane can be landed. So if you have no commercial plane can be landed, that means there's no Asia, there's no Mars. So if you have accessibility issue, we better stop. Please do not go first until you get all these things planned out. So while we are very thankful to God and also to our local partner, they are able to help us to arrange a lot of things, especially when we talk about the internal transport within the country. Okay. The third one, very important, local partner. A local partner play a very important role in a disaster response. It's not CREST, it's not me, it's not who is CK, it's our local partner. If our local partner have the same knowledge and they know what to do, and they have a connections with the local government, that will be the best local partner you should work with. Okay. The fourth is finance. Now, very practical disaster response will cost a lot of money. Okay. None of the disaster that we responded, we have a balance of fund. Okay, we always manage the fund and use the fund into the most needed area, and even that is not enough. So before we respond, we will think of how we're going to get this funding. Then we'll be back to the marketing issues. How we're going to draw fund from others. And the last one is the need. Okay, recently there's a flood in Indonesia, one of the kampong. CREST is not deploying. It's not because of COVID-19. It's because of the need are small. The local NGOs are able to handle it. In that case, we are not going to respond. So these are the questions we have to think about before we deploy. Now, when we deploy, we should have, again, clear objective. Second, we need to collaborate with the local partner and also the local community. The third one is about planning. Planning, there are 5 things we need to think about. Which are the sectors that we're going to touch? And who are our beneficiaries? What is the timeline? Okay, how do we transport this and that? And what will be our budget? So these are the 5 things we need to understand. And the last but not least, every project, any operation must approved by the local authorities, even when you are there. So look at this picture. This is the house that we have built. Okay, 390 houses. Duration is 1 year. We collaborate. Our local partner is MDS, another denomination, one of the denominations, Christian denominations in Indonesia, and an NGO called Gesa Pentara. 390 houses cost us about 570,000 ringgit Malaysia. And this project approved by BNPB. BNPB is actually same as Malaysian NAGMA, which is a disaster management agency for the government in Indonesia. Now, if you realize that over here, the beneficiary will be the earthquake survivor, and here I stated here is fully destroyed. Some of you might think, what happened to the partially destroyed? There are NGOs that handle to repair the partially destroyed, but not us. Disaster response is not a competition. We are not here to compete with others. Now, we built 5 meters times 5 meters square house for them. Then the other one built 8 times 8. No, we are not here to compete. Okay, we are here to collaborate. Okay. Now that's all about disaster response. What I can share during these sessions. If you really like to know us more and really want to get trained, beside the 2 core modules, I would like to introduce to you some elective module. So the first elective module I would like to introduce to you, it will be more relevant to our Malaysian, which is called water surface rescue and boat handling. Okay, we are the country that very prone to flood. So this module will train you how to manage a boat, with the engine. Okay, cost you about 2 days. 1 day's classroom indoor training, and the other one is practical training. Okay, and this training actually is under the syllabus of NFPA. NFPA is the fire department standard by UK and US. Even Malaysia are using the same standard. Okay. The other elective module is wilderness survival search and rescue. And basically, we are going to bring you into a jungle. But before that, there are some prerequisite module you have to attend, which is the C110 and E110. E110 will be our basic life support. This will be a 2 days practical training all outdoor, inside the jungle. No Facebook, no WhatsApp. So the third one will be urban search and rescue. This is a very intensive training. It costs you about 5 days and very expensive because the trainers is from outside of Malaysia. And this module, you need a lot of prerequisites. Okay, but of course, if you are really into this, we are able to bring this syllabus into Malaysia. Okay, the other one, if you see the R, actually is something related to response. We call water filtrations in emergency. How do we get clean water during earthquake, during flood, as there's no water supply? Water supply from the pipe is already contaminated. How are we able to get clean water? So this will be a 1 day's classroom training. The other one is cleaning. Okay, R180. R is recovery. So this is what we have done recently in Pahang and as well as in Johor. We train volunteers how to use the water jet, okay, how to maintain a water jet, and how do we mobilize team, and how do we help the victims to clean their houses. Okay, so and last but not least, I'm here to encourage all of us. Disaster response is about relationship. Okay, first the relationship we've got. The second relationship with our partners. We have partners from China, Myanmar, Philippines, Japan, Indonesia, Nepal, Sri Lanka, and as well as Singapore. This is not just partners in wording, but we are together doing something. Okay, so thank you for your time. If you have any further questions, please let us know. God bless and shalom.